my story kind of goes back to, at least in this area, goes back to about 2007, 2008, when the recession hit. And it hit many cities, and some cities pretty badly, and Tucson was one of those cities. And so for me, with the challenge that we faced at the city of Tucson was, well, the economy is tanking, revenues are going down, but at the same time, the need from the community for government assistance, for government help, goes up, especially as the economy goes down. So it was a bit of a double whammy for the city. So the mayor at the time, the city manager, the city council members all said, well, what are we going to do? And at the time, the mayor challenged me and others to find new ways to solve old problems, new ways to deliver services to people in a more cost-effective, efficient way. So the area of city government that, for whatever reason, I got really interested in a way to try to find better ways to do what we do, is potholes. Right? A friend of mine, a guy named Ben Berkowitz, who started a company called C-Click Fix, which I'll get to in a second, he calls potholes the gateway drug to civic engagement. No matter who you are, no matter what your background, there's a pothole in your town that drives you crazy, and that's what gets you to call the city, right? You may never even know what the city does or who they are, or you may know people who call the city to get your social security checks, right? Many people just don't know what different levels of government do, but those potholes, that'll get you. So I wanted to learn more about our pothole. How do citizens inform government that there's a pothole that needs to be fixed, right? Something as simple as that. So I actually researched this stuff, and I find out that the city of Tucson has a pothole hotline. So, problem already, right? But okay, I'll go with it. So I find a real pothole, like I found a real one. And I went out and I called myself, and I called the number. I don't even know what the number is anymore, but we have a pothole. Hello, pothole hotline, how can I help you? Well, so I'm talking to a person, right? Even that's, which is nice, but I'm not sure. How can I help? Well, I'd like to report a pothole. Great, sir. Can you describe the pothole?
It's like moving around.
Can you describe the pothole? How would you describe a pothole? So I looked at it again. I was standing there. Right? So I said, well, and I tried to find a pothole that wouldn't be too hard to find. Right? And we've got a great variety out there. So I found a pothole, and I said, it's a little more oval than round. It's about a foot in diameter. And then, I couldn't help it. I got a little sarcastic. Bigger than a bread box, smaller than a VW bug. So that's really what I said. And so all I hear in the background is clicking. Right. Someone's actually entering the words that I said. So finally, I wait a few seconds till I hear the clicking end. And then the really nice woman, her name's Clarissa, by the way, she's wonderful. She says, okay, sir, thank you. Can you tell me where the pothole is? Well, it's kind of near the intersection of Campbell and Kleinedale. Go east on Kleinedale from Campbell. If you go it's right near the second palm tree on the north side of the street. If you go past the fire hydrant on the south side, you went too far. Every single word. So thank you, sir. Just one more question. So, would you describe the pothole as a public safety hazard? And later I come to find out that 99 out of 100 people who call, right, whether it's a alligator crack or a moon crater, will say that it's a public safety hazard, no matter what the definition is. Right? They do so, of course, because they're so used to dealing with bureaucratic systems that they don't want to allow at all that their issue that they're calling about is a priority. Right? So, again, 99 out of 100 people say yes, which makes the question kind of moot. But I was playing along, so I said, so can you describe for me what makes a pothole a public safety hazard? Well, sir, if you believe that a vehicle would veer out of its lane of traffic in order to avoid it, or a vehicle will be damaged by driving through it, that constitutes a public safety hazard. And so I looked at it and I really thought about it for a second. Yeah, it is. Thank you, sir, for calling the pothole hotline. So, whoa, wait a second. So what happens now? Well, we'll put it into our work order systems. They'll get to it. well, how will I know when you get to it? Well, sir, I'm really sorry, we don't really have any systems in place to let you know that we got to it. But, go check it out in a couple weeks. If it's still out there, if it still isn't fixed, go fix it. Call us back. We'll send another crew out. Thank you for calling the Pothole. So, I love this, and I've dedicated my life to making these things work. And I looked at this, and I'm just, no, there's got to be a better way. There has to be a better way. So, sure enough, I was talking with friends, and I thought, what if we had a smartphone app, right? Where you go, you see the pothole, you take the photo, right? The photo, it turns out, is better quality data for the person whose job it is to find the pothole, fill it, than the words, bigger than a bread box, smaller than a VW bug, more oval than circular, whatever. And then the GPS from the photo can get within 15 yards of the pothole. It's actually, again, better quality data for the person whose job it is to find and fill it than Campbell, Kleindale, Palm Tree, fire hydrant. And then the photo itself is actually, again, better quality data for the purpose it's supposed to serve than the answer to the question, well, is it a public safety hazard or not? Right? Because again, everyone says yes anyway. Right? And people can look at it. And what if the photo and the GPS was plotted onto a Google map that was available to anyone in the public 24/7, and people can see all the pothole reports and comment on them. Some people can say, yeah, I know that pothole, I want it fixed too. So it's not just the first call, first served. We can actually prioritize a little bit and get to potholes that the public themselves are telling us are the priorities, especially when we have limited resources to get to. So I said, boy, I just think this can help. Not instead of the phone call, the hotline, not instead of other systems we have, but in addition to. It would provide better service, 24/7 service, and far more efficiency. And ideally, at the end of the process, instead of having what we have now, which is after Clarissa types the report into the system, right? The report goes into the work order system that the street maintenance division gets, that then someone looks at and divides it up into the 4, it used to be 6, now it's 4 service areas of the city, who then someone takes it and sends it to the supervisor for that district, and then divides the potholes among 3 different work crews that'll go out on a given day, right? Even that, why not just have the street maintenance worker look at the photo, look at the website, and look at the photo, and even ultimately have them take a photo of the fill pothole, and have that be uploaded up to the right next to, right, the photo of the reported pothole, before, after, done, right?
And the date.
Yeah. Oh, the date and time. Absolutely, all that is included. Right. And so not only would that show service to the public, it would actually provide more data for the city itself to be able to manage our system better. Right? We would look at trends. Why is it taking 3.7 days on the west side but 2.4 days on the east side, for example? Right? Are there different crews that are doing things differently? Are there, we would be better able to even know how well we're doing with a system like that. So that got me excited. It's like, we need to do this. Right? So through friends of mine and people I know just in other cities, and even friends in the valley, I pursued this, like a bloodhound. How do we do this? How can I get this to Tucson? And sure enough, through a couple of friends of mine, one is this guy Ben Berkowitz I mentioned, who started a startup called SeeClickFix. Right? And as of now, you can look up SeeClickFix.com. You can do SeeClickFix.com/Tucson. I was talking to him back in 2008. It's like, what you're doing is great. It was a web app where people can report non-emergency issues, not just potholes, graffiti, abandoned vehicles, code violations. And the way it's set up is someone reports it, and the city sets it up so that if a report is in a certain category, say potholes, graffiti, whatever, an email gets generated that gets sent to that department, or whoever the responsible party is. So it doesn't require any extra work at the city. It's all laid out. So I said to him, that's great, I want to bring it to Tucson, but I want a mobile app. I've thought about doing a mobile app, he said, but I don't know who would use it. I'll use it. It's like, okay, if you promise to use it, I'll make it. Great. So it turns out Tucson was the first city they developed the mobile app for Tucson, and we've been using it longer than any other city. There are hundreds of cities now, not only in the United States, but around the world, that use SeeClickFix. And there are other companies and services now in that same area. There's not just SeeClickFix anymore. But to me, that's an example of what we can do, thinking about how do we make the services we provide more efficient, more transparent, and even have city government be more collaborative. Like in the system I described, citizens are actually helping play a role in identifying, reporting, and prioritizing potholes. Can we do that for other services as well? How can citizens help us govern and provide more efficiency and accountability even in an era of fewer resources? The second thing, that I'll talk about, and Justin mentioned this earlier, is another friend of mine, a good old family friend of mine. Her name is Jen Palka. Was working, a friend of mine from way back. She was working in the Valley, just different companies, different stuff, and for years I'd been hitting her over the head with all this stuff. You know, how can I get partners in the Valley to work on this kind of stuff? And she always said, well, there's no money in it. Who would do that? I don't know. So finally, back in 2008, 2009, I'm losing track already. We were on a family vacation together. Again, she and her family are family friends. And one very late night, after a lot of beers, up in Flagstaff, Arizona, we alighted on the idea of Code for America. Turns out when I graduated undergrad, I was in the Teach for America program. For those of you who aren't familiar, it's a program where you agree to, it's like a Peace Corps or Vista type program. You agree to teach for 2 years in a federally designated teacher shortage area. And it's a competitive program. I did it back when I graduated. I taught in both South Central LA and Houston, actually. And we just alighted on the idea, can we do something similar instead of for people who want to be teachers, can we do something for young web developers and designers? And for Jen, the light bulb went off and she said, Eureka, that's a great idea. I'm going to quit my job and go do it. I said, the next morning, we'd been drinking a lot. I said, we were drinking. Don't run with ideas that come up over, late night, the beers, the altitude in Flagstaff. There's not a lot of oxygen up there. Do you really want to run with an idea? She said, yeah, it's a great idea. I'm going to go do it. And so, long story short, she, through her amazing efforts and her incredible leadership, took the reins and sold the idea to a number of key folks in the Valley, many people you've heard of before, and within about a year, Code for America was born. And it started out with us recruiting about 25 coders and designers from around the country, and we contracted with the cities of Seattle and Boston and Philadelphia to build different apps. And the whole idea is that everything is open source, everything's on GitHub, everything's available to all cities. We got started and it went well. The next year we moved up to about 8 cities, including Austin, Chicago, and others. And we're now in our 4th year, finishing up our 4th year. We've expanded the number of cities. We're even working with counties now. We have different programs. There's the fellowship program, which is what I described. We also have an accelerator program. So people who are building companies, for-profit companies, but are in the civic technology space. We provide them some seed money and a lot of technical support from VCs and other leaders in Silicon Valley. We're headquartered in San Francisco. We also have what some of you might be interested in is a brigade. So young hackers, coders around the country. If you want to get involved in this movement around the country, you can join up. And different cities have brigades and brigade leaders. And there's a network that we created out of Code for America where you can get more information and find out what other cities are doing. And when cities like Tucson put on a Code for Tucson event, Code for America is there to provide some assistance for that event. And again, the idea is that This is government, this is community, we share everything. So again, everything that comes through Code for America is open source, machine readable, meant to be as widely available, adaptable as possible to reach the maximum amount of people. So with that, let me just say that it dovetails well with what I do, again, at the City of Tucson. My goal and my passion, like I said, is for Tucson to be an incredible city that balances its commitments to the economy and to the environment. I think that's what makes Tucson different from, say, the Austins and Portlands and Seattles of the world. That's what we're about here, and I think that the more we can build an economy around innovation, around young, talented, smart people doing innovative things, that is what is going to allow us to build globally competitive goods and services that we can then sell to the world and bring wealth here and provide just a better, stronger economy with jobs and opportunities for all of our people with a very light footprint. That, I think, is what Tucsonans, as much as we may disagree about the future, those are the kinds of things that I think most Tucsonans do believe that we're about. So whether it's you're building an app for a new company, a great idea, or you're starting a cool restaurant, or you're building a new business, whatever it is, private, public, community-minded, purely capitalistic, all of it. If you're doing it here in Tucson, I'm happy, it's good. So I want to just close by saying thank you for coming, thank you for participating in Code for Tucson. Please support This is Tucson, Startup Tucson, all the different groups and organizations that are really trying to build this for our city. I think all of these efforts, and you being here this weekend, putting in as much work as you have on your projects, it really does make a difference, and hopefully it will bring you satisfaction, but it really does make a difference to what our city and our community is working on and trying to be. So again, thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and thanks again to Justin, to Jen, to my partner in crime, Mark Taylor, from the City of Tucson, to Dan, who's also been affiliated with Code for America before. Thank you again.